I'm going to do the same.
You'll get a head start for going home tomorrow. You're breaking it up.
You're going to keep the jacket right there.
No, I texted him on Tuesday before he responded.
He owns the home that your grandmother lives in.
Sacramento Taiko Dan is a drumming group that it will be performing for you in just a couple minutes. We apologize for the weather. We're glad that you found the ceremony inside, and we're really glad that so many people have come today to celebrate the dedication of the memorial to Japantown that used to exist here, right here, almost 100 years ago before it was burned. We have a great program for you in just a couple minutes. They will be starting the drum performance. So everybody, please find a place. There are more chairs if you would like one.
Thank you very much. We're the Sacramento Taiko Dan, and we're very happy to be here today. How many of you have seen Taiko before? Oh, wow. That is great. Thank you. We started 35 years ago under the Taiko master, Tiffany Tamadabuchi. I'm going to hold this because I think it's going to fall. We're doing Japanese drumming for those who aren't familiar with Taiko. And so Taiko has been around for centuries, and in Japan they would use Taiko for religious ceremonies, festivals, celebrations. Even during the war, they would be calling one village from another. And so we are just happy to be here. We're going to play another song called Bariki, which means horsepower. And then we'll be back toward the end and play 2 more songs later, okay? This one's called Umami, Spices.
Well, as you have all discovered, the weather has not cooperated with us. In some ways, maybe this is an analogy to the plight of the Japanese that were here before World War II. Despite the best efforts, preparations, the best intentions, things did not turn out the way we hoped. Things did not turn out the way we wanted. Things did not turn out the way they should have. Nevertheless, this dedication is long overdue, and no apologies will ever make up for the indignity of false accusations, loss of belongings, loss of freedom, and the loss of community that the Japanese suffered. But let this event mark a new beginning. We have an amazing program for you, and it looks like the weather may break by the time this ceremony is over with, and we can all go out and see the unveiling. I would like now to turn the mic over to Mayor of Winters, Bill Biasi, for an official welcome to Winters.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the Japanese community, fellow Winters residents, distinguished guests, and all who've gathered here today. We welcome you all. It's an honor for me to be here as the Mayor of Winters. I would like to first acknowledge the outstanding work of the Historical Society of Winters in putting this event together, and the amazing display they have at the Winters Museum entitled The Lost Japanese Community of Winters. We gather here today to recognize a challenging piece of our country's and our city's history, one that needs to always be remembered so that it is never again repeated. At the April 16th, 2024 meeting of the Winters City Council, a proclamation was unanimously passed recognizing the history of Japantown, the contributions of the Japanese community to the city of Winters, and celebrating the monument which will be unveiled today. That proclamation is on display for you over here on the side if you would like to read that. I read it at the latest city council meeting where it was approved, and it was very long, so I will spare you that today. The city council recognizes and acknowledges the grave injustice that was done to the Americans of Japanese descent during a dark time in our country's history. At that recent city council meeting, we also unanimously adopted resolution 2024-27, rescinding a resolution from 1942 that the city council passed, and that previous 1942 resolution discriminated against the Japanese community in Winters. The work of the Winters Historical Society and the dedication of this monument will serve to educate the public about the once vibrant Japanese community that lived and contributed to the history and fabric of the community of Winters. This monument is but one step towards reconciliation and healing of past discrimination in this city and our country. Recognizing this once vibrant Japanese community was a part of ours will hopefully further that reconciliation forward to the next generation. Thank you all, and God bless you.
And now I would like to ask Floyd Shimomura to come up to the podium. Floyd has the distinction of being the youngest president of the NJCL, National Japanese Citizens League, national president at age 32, I think? 34. Anyway, he's good at facts, and he's here to tell a little bit about the history of the Japanese community that was right here.
Thank you very much, Woody. And it's actually a good benefit that we're all here today because we can just turn around and see our historic railroad bridge. And because it's raining, I don't think a lot of you will have a chance to spend time actually looking at the monument after it's unveiled. So in my brief remarks, I'm going to give you a preview of what you're going to see. Now, if you pull out your program, you will see a picture of the old Japantown as it existed in 1930. And the picture depicts a funeral for Mrs. Nishida, who was 49 years old and worked on a farm south of Winters, probably in the Olive School District. The photograph has 151 people in it and represented probably about 50% of the entire Japanese community in the Winters area, not just the city. And one thing I want to point out is that this photograph will be on the monument, and modern technology has it that they were able to get this photograph on tile that should last 100 to 200 years, so we don't have to worry about it fading. But the key point is, if you look at the photograph in your pamphlet, on the far right, you'll notice a historic monument, our railroad bridge. And because we're inside, we can turn around and you see it right out our back window here. And if you look at that bridge, you'll see the date 1906 up there on the beam. And my grandfather came over that bridge in just that year, 1906. And every time I see that bridge, it reminds me of how long my grandfather and family have been here in Winters. My father graduated from Winters High School in 1939, and I graduated from Winters High School in 1966. Hardly any of the people who are in this photograph are still alive, except there's one. And that's my aunt, Harumi. She's 98 years old. And in the photograph, she's 3 years old, and our grandmother, Sawano, is holding her. Okay. So I'd like to ask my Auntie Harumi just to stand up and be recognized. This great gathering is probably the largest gathering of this pre-war community since the pre-war period. And, you know, I can imagine if the folks who are in this photograph were standing on that bridge right now and they could look into this room and see all the descendants sitting in this one spot that once was the heart of the old Japantown, they'd be so amazed and gratified. And I think you should all give yourself a big round of applause. The text on the right-hand side of your pamphlet is the language that's going to appear on the monument. And the title is Japantown, a monument dedicated to the pre-war Japanese community of Winters. Now, the first paragraph says, Japanese immigrants first came to Winters in 1888 to provide a better life for their families. This first generation, the Issei, came as farmers, laborers, and horticulturalists. Now, let me make one comment on that. And I think the key thing to remember is 1888. Not very many people know this, but I was reading a book called The Issei by Yuji Ichioka. He's the premier historian on the Issei in the United States. And he talks about all over the United States, California, San Francisco. But on page 40, or on page 80, he says something very interesting, and I'm just going to read one sentence to you. The Japanese entered California agriculture in 1888 when a few student laborers worked as field hands in Winters near Vacaville. You don't know it, but this community is actually historically very favorable or very famous. These student laborers were Japanese students who were studying in San Francisco, and during the summertime, they needed a part-time job, so they came out to Winters to help harvest the apricots and peaches. But through that contact, you know, they started thinking, hey, Winters is a pretty good place, and a few of them decided to hang around, and that's the beginning of the Japanese community in Winters. The second paragraph reads, many Japanese families lived on farms outside of Winters. Within the city limits of Winters, however, they were allowed to live or have businesses only in one block 4, which is depicted in the funeral picture. Japantown was located northeast of the railroad bridge. By the 1980s, there were approximately 300 Japanese residents in the Winters area, which included the Issei and the US-born Nisei generation. Okay, the comment that I will make on that paragraph is that, and this is another thing not many people know, that in 1915 an ordinance was passed that prohibited the Japanese from doing business or living in any spot except for Block 4. And Block 4 is basically Rotary Park, this area here. So the Japantown that had grown up here became, in effect, part of a segregated community. The third paragraph reads as follows. After Pearl Harbor and the issuance of Executive Order 9066, the federal government sent all persons of Japanese ancestry on the West Coast to incarceration camps. There were 10 camps across the United States, but those from Winters area went to Gila River, Arizona, and Amachi, Colorado. Let me just stop right there. The reason why the community was divided was because the military organized people based on county line. And it just so happens, as we all know, that we're standing in Yolo County, but you can look over the bridge and there's Solano County. So just by that little difference in geography, half of the Japanese community went to Arizona and the other half to Colorado. The buildings, and now I'm reading from the plaque again. The buildings in Japantown were destroyed in a suspicious fire on VJ Day, 1945. Due to local hostility, less than 15% of the pre-war Japanese returned to Winters. Now, I didn't know any of this when I went to high school or lived here, and it was only about 10 years ago that I got a copy of this book by Joan Larkey, Winters, The History of Our Town. And she did a wonderful job researching all the back issues of the Winters Express. And she dug up a lot of things that I knew nothing about. But one of the things that she did talk about was that suspicious fire on VJ Day. And this is what she says about that. And now I'm quoting from this book. She said, VJ Day celebrations at Winters, heralding the end of World War II on August 14, 1945, culminated with a spectacular fire in what was then called Japantown. Before the flames were brought under control, this fire of unknown origin destroyed several cabins, damaged several large shade trees, and burned the roofs of the 5 principal buildings in the Asian Business District. And in 1948, the buildings were so heavily damaged that they had to be brought down. Now, I would say this, we're standing here and we're in Japantown, right? And there's a big celebration on Main Street. So how far away is Main Street from here? I mean, you could pick up a football and probably throw it from Main Street and hit the side of this building. And so probably whoever was responsible for that, although they could never figure out who it was, although probably half the town was down here at the time. But whoever did it probably thought it was a big joke or just having some fun. But the tragedy of that was that the incarceration camps were being closed precisely at the same time because the war ended, the rationale for the incarceration ended. And so people in the camps had to make a decision. Where are they going to go? Are they going to go back home or someplace else? And, a few of the people in the camps subscribed to the Winters Express, so that, they read about all of this. And it sent out this negative feeling that it would be dangerous to come back to Winters, and maybe we wouldn't be welcome there. And that's why only 15% came back. And, we can think about the negatives, but 15% did come back because there were some good people here in Winters who went against public opinion and invited the Japanese back to Winters, 15%. And that's why people like myself and Hiramatsu, the Katos, and others who did come back were able to do so. And on a personal note, I'd like to recognize the Tufts family, Vicky and Sandy and Stan. Why don't you stand up, Dave? There you go. Their grandfather was Professor Tufts, and he was head of the pomology department at UC Davis, and very well respected in this area because of his knowledge of fruit trees and everything. And so to have a friend like that was really critical. So sometimes people don't need a handout. All they need is a chance, a hand, and that's what was extended. And the other interesting and gratifying things is Vicky and that family has been very supportive in this campaign to put this monument up. So sometimes it takes a little while, but sometimes you're on the short end. But history meant that Vicky, Sandy, and Stan, they were on the right side of history, and I think they are the ones who are the real heroes out of this whole tragedy. They and the others who helped the Kato family, the Hiramatsu family. So again, a round of applause for the heroes in the story. The final paragraph says, under the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, the federal government apologized and granted reparations to Japanese Americans who were unjustly incarcerated. Now, this is a part of the story that I have a personal contact with, because after I graduated from Winters High School in 1966, I went to Davis, because that's where Professor Tufts came from. And also I went to law school and became the national president of the Japanese American Citizens League when I was 34. I used to think that was a lot older than being 30 or 32, but looking back on it now, 34 sounds pretty young. But during that campaign, we were able to get President Reagan to sign the bill in 1988. And this is the historical anomaly here, is that in 1888, the first Japanese students came to Winters to pick apricots and peaches. And in 1988, Ronald Reagan passed the redress bill. So it seems to me that this little town of Winters has been involved in the struggle of the Japanese to attain first-class citizenship from beginning to end, through good times and bad times. And in both instances, in 1888 and in 1988, provided some leadership to the rest of the country. And so that leads us to the final sentence that says, the citizens of Winters continue to honor the Japanese community who lived here and contributed to the vibrant history of agriculture and businesses. So if you don't get a chance to get up close to the monument, I've given you a quick preview. So my spoiler alert came a little too late. Thank you.
And now an amazing memory written by Sumiko Higaki, who is here today, and it's going to be read by her granddaughters, Kristen and Kiku Yasukawa. Okay.
Thank you so much for the introduction and for having us here today. I'm Kristen Yasukawa, and this is my sister Kiku Yasukawa, and we will be reading an essay that my grandmother Sumiko Higaki wrote, and it's about when she was leaving Winters and relocating into the incarceration camp at Gila River in Arizona. And she's going to be 95 in just a few weeks, so. Everything the folks had worked so long and hard for would be gone. All our possessions, our household furniture, Daddy's cars, trucks, the expensive farming equipment accumulated over the years, Mary's piano and her beautiful new bicycle, Mama's washing machine, and our new refrigerator. What would happen to all these? What would happen to our home? What was going to happen to us? These frantic thoughts must run through our parents' minds as we gathered around the utility pole near our house that spring morning in 1942 and read the words on that sheet of paper that someone had posted there. Instructions to all persons of Japanese ancestry living in the following areas, Yolo and Solano County, in the state of California, will be removed. I knew the news was not good, but being only 12 at the time, I don't think I fully realized the impact that this moment would have on us. From then on, all normalcy was lost as our family tried to fathom and face everything that had to be done within the next 4 to 5 weeks in preparation for our departure. As we learned more about this forced removal of all of us who were of Japanese ancestry, we realized the enormity of this order and the very short time we had to make some very important decisions. If we could take only what we could carry, what do we do with everything else in our home and on the farm?
Many families had fire sales, and the word got around very quickly that there were some real bargains to be had. Some of the greater community took advantage of us and our plight by trying to buy things as cheaply as possible. One Japanese lady in town was so outraged by the paltry amount offered for her beautiful set of expensive china that rather than sell it at that price, she stood there in front of the potential buyer and threw each piece on the pavement, shattering the whole set. But thankfully, many honest, kind, and generous neighbors and friends helped us. Daddy had bought a new DeSoto sedan the past autumn for $925, and a neighbor purchased the car from us and matched the full price Daddy had paid. Our teacher, Mrs. Armstrong, a wonderful Christian lady, offered to keep some of our things for us, and Daddy asked her to keep his new Kodak camera for him. After the war ended, when he went to see her, she returned the camera to him, and when Daddy tried to give her a small amount of money for her kindness, she would not take it. "No, Harry," she said, "I do not want rewards for helping a friend." Immediately after Pearl Harbor, the Buddhist church in town where my family worshiped closed its doors. Mrs. Armstrong invited my sisters and me to attend her church, the local Winters Presbyterian Church, and my 2 sisters and I attended this church until forced removal. The members of this church opened their hearts to us and made us feel welcomed and wanted. At a time when we felt that even neighbors and friends saw us with disfavor, the warmth of this congregation left an indelible impression on me and my sisters. This was our introduction to Christianity, and over the years, all 3 of us became Christians, even though Miss Armstrong never knew that her kindness had opened the door for our conversation. I wish we could have let her know, because she would have been so pleased.
My father could see the bright side of most situations, but I doubt that he saw any bright side to this situation. Yet he explained the coming evacuation to us children in a way that made it something to look forward to rather than something to be dreaded. He said, "We're going on a trip. It will be a vacation." A vacation? Other than a few overnight trips to the beach for fishing and clamming, we had never been on a real vacation. Our folks bought each of us a brand new suitcase, and Mama helped us pack our clothes and told us, "You can take anything else you want as long as you can carry your own suitcase after it's all packed." I wanted to take some of my books, but they were heavy, so I only took my 2 favorites, Black Beauty and Dog of Flanders. My older sister Mary, a promising pianist at age 16, packed her favorite piano music. She took many of the classics she had learned and some popular music as well, like Sleepy Lagoon, which was #1 on the hit parade at the time. Her music teacher, Mr. Adams, had seen the promise Mary had shown in her piano and urged her, "Continue your piano study if at all possible." But would there be a piano where we were going? Before the departure day finally came, we had packed and unpacked our suitcases many times over, and so we prepared to leave. Everything we could not store, sell, or take with us, we gave away, threw away, or left behind. I don't know what happened to the farming equipment or the household appliances, but I do remember someone buying Mary's piano. A woman came to the door and asked what we had to sell, so Mama showed her some of the things, including the piano. "I'll take that," the woman said, and paid Mama $25 for Mary's beautiful piano. When her piano was sold, it must have been as though she had lost her best friend. The quiet in the house, especially in the evenings, was a silent reminder that Mary didn't have her beloved piano. Mama never had to remind Mary to practice. It was something she just loved to do. More often than not, my younger sister, Mitzi, and I fell asleep at night listening to Mary softly running her fingers over the piano keys in the adjoining living room. Along with the excitement of our impending vacation, my sisters and I felt sadness too. Deep down, I think we all knew the trip was not a real vacation, but something more serious and profound. We knew we couldn't take our dog Poochie or our cats Boots and Silvertoes, even though they were going to be cared for by a friend. Leaving them would be hard. Our dog was very pregnant at the time, and I can still recall looking back and seeing Poochie standing in the middle of the country road, her usually wagging tail droopy and still, looking so forlorn as our car drove away. I really believe she knew we would not be coming back. Our friend later wrote to tell us, "Poochie has given birth to so many healthy puppies and enjoys being a mom." But we never saw Poochie or our cats again.
With everything gone, the piano, our pets, Daddy's record player, everything gone, we left our now empty home in late May 1942. The apricots were almost ready for harvest, the fruit turning a beautiful pinkish color on the trees. Daddy and Mama had worked all year caring for their apricot, almond, peach, and plum orchards, but they would not be here to see the harvest. The evening before we left, after dinner, Daddy had gone out alone for a walk through the apricot orchard near the house. I saw him stop, and for a long time he just stood there, looking up at the trees. He didn't say anything, but I thought I knew what he was thinking, what he was feeling, because I felt it too. Not as acutely, perhaps, but I understood. As young as I was, and even though he had tried to protect us from fearing the forced removal, I knew, as he did, that we were leaving the security of our home, our friends, our comfortable life. We did not know what lay ahead. I sensed his heavy heart and knew that he was also mourning the loss of everything he and Mama had accomplished over 21 years of hard work. From nothing except faith in themselves and determination to succeed, they had built a fulfilling life for themselves and their 3 daughters. A life filled with many friends and thriving children and noisy pets, with music and books and satisfying work. A home where we were happy and felt safe and protected. Now we were losing it all. What a sad time this must have been for my parents. Even now, my memory of that still figure in the orchard, shadowed by the leaves and branches of the apricot trees, brings an ache to my heart. The next day, we finished packing our suitcases for good, locked up the empty house, and said goodbye to our pets and to friends who had gathered at the house. Another good friend drove us with our suitcases to the station in Vacaville. My younger sister, Mitzi, could only drag her heavy suitcase, weighed down by its precious contents of things a young child couldn't leave behind. So Daddy had to carry hers along with his own. A Along with these 2 suitcases, he lugged his heavy case of Japanese music records. Even though he couldn't take his record player, he loved his music and he just couldn't bear to part with his record collection. We and the other evacuees boarded the waiting train, and as it began to move, we waved to those who had come to see us off. Our vacation had started. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen and Kiku, and thank you, Sumiko, for those moving memories. And now we have a short presentation from Lucas Frerichs, representing the Yolo County Board of Supervisors. And Lucas, by the way, is a co-sponsor of this event. Lucas?
Thanks very much, Woody. Appreciate that. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see so many people gathered here today. It's actually, the sun just came out outside just a second ago. A few minutes, for those of us on stage, we're fortunate to see that. So fortuitous moments here, but I'm honored to be the chair of the Yolo County Board of Supervisors this year, and also even more honored to represent Winters on the Board of Supervisors. I just want to do a quick recognition of one of my colleagues, Supervisor Jim Provenza, and also former supervisor and California State Assemblyman Rico Yamada. Just want to recognize them. I had the privilege of drafting a resolution recognizing this momentous occasion. Much like the City of Winters just recently, this Board of Supervisors several months ago, it was brought to our attention that there was a 1943 resolution still on the books in Yolo County calling for not to allow Japanese Americans to return to Yolo County after the conclusion of World War II. And so the board unanimously rescinded that resolution. We had members of the Japanese American community, Floyd and many others, come and speak to us about that issue. And so really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and recognize this momentous occasion. And I think it's so important to recognize a number of these really tragic mistakes of the past, especially considering that some of the same themes that were occurring in the 1940s are again occurring today. There is definitely an increasing amount of othering going on in our society. So on behalf of the Yolo County Board of Supervisors, and I want to thank all the organizers and all those involved for making this ceremony and moment a reality today. Domo arigato. Thank you very much.
We also have Eliana Pimentel, representing Speaker Pro Tem of the California State Assembly and the office of Cecilia, our very own Cecilia Aguiar-Curry.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Eliana Pimentel, and I'm here on behalf of Assembly Majority Leader Cecilia Aguiar-Curry. It's truly an honor to stand before you today to present this State Assembly resolution for the Winters Japantown Monument. Congratulations to everyone involved in making today possible. Thank you.
We also have the United States Congress passed a resolution, thanks to Mike Thompson, who spoke in session, and a framed copy of that resolution is with the other resolutions that'll be over there. If you want to go and look at them and read them, they'll be available. It is now my great honor to present Consul General of Japan, Yo Osumi, who came here today from his office in San Francisco.
Good afternoon, and thank you to Floyd Shimomura and Mayor Bill Biasi and others and the Winter Museum and Historical Society of Winters for inviting me to today's reception celebration of Japanese American history and legacy. I'm honored to be here, and when I draft this kind of speech, I always don't expect certain things. One is about the rain today. I'm sorry for the rain, and I think I feel like I brought it from San Francisco. So you can praise it after I leave, it should be sunny. And second thing is I didn't expect that this is such a historic moment for this town, Winters town. And there should be a lot of reflections, emotions, and education for this moment. So I'd like to, and I came here because Floyd came to our consulate twice, bringing the photo and explaining what happened and what is going to happen today. So I came here to pay respect to his efforts, to bring attention of what is happening in this town, and I'm glad I'm here. I came to San Francisco last September, and in summer 2023, I happened to travel with my family to Wakayama. Wakayama is a prefecture near Osaka, city of Osaka, and 80% of the Winters town, Japanese Americans originated from Wakayama. It's a beautiful region, a very sunny region with mandarin orange as wood, rice, and salted plums. So it's very famous for these kind of things. So no wonder that this town has thrived with the Japanese American community. They worked on agriculture. And even now that when, in winter, people in San Francisco tend to talk about going to do skiing in Lake Tahoe. I feel like it's too expensive for me by now. But I went once and I found a grocery called Ikeda between Sacramento and right, and it's still the best shop for us for family hamburger and all the things like from apples to grapes and mandarins. So I feel like that I didn't expect that I would come to Winters town when I went to Wakayama, but there's certainly a connection because in Wakayama I heard that there are many people who went to the United States. I didn't know that. I came here, I understood Wakayama is one of the 5 regions in Japan which produced many Japanese Americans, in this country. So we heard lots of history about the incarcerations of Japanese Americans, witnesses from the diary as well. And by now we know some. And of course, they were in a bind between the war, in the war between Japan and the United States. There are some crazy things happening in Japan at the time. In fact, in 1934-36, American baseball team, professional baseball team, came to Japan, led by Babe Ruth. So Babe Ruth was in Japan, and they had one match with the Japanese professional baseball team, inaugural Japanese baseball team, and Japanese team lost by 1-0. And the pitcher who was, who got a strikeout from Babe Ruth, he also perished in the war. But at the time, only after 4 or 5 or 6 years, we started banning the use of English. So instead of saying 3 balls, 2 strikes, we said 3 dame and 2 yoshi. Dame is no, 2 is yes. So it's kind of things could happen. But, when I was a kid, and throughout my professional life, I have always been told, and I have been witnessing, that American democracy learns from mistakes. And they have the ability to change the course to address the mistakes. And that's happening today as well. And of course, there are some certain people in 1941, 42, who helped Japanese Americans when they had to leave from here. So the relationship between the two countries is very strong now. Our Prime Minister Kishida, was in Washington, D.C. just a month ago, and he addressed the Congress, and he mentioned in that speech that historical contribution of the Japanese Americans in supporting the bilateral relationship between Japan and the United States. Now, this our key partnership includes not only the peace, but also the innovation and technology, and in space as well. And Prime Minister Kishida also announced that Japan will give 250 cherry trees to the park in Washington, D.C., which is famous for cherry blossoms, in honor of the United States 250th anniversary next year, year 2026. So, as winter's pride itself in its apricots, we Japanese treasure cherry blossoms of sakura, symbolizing joy, hope, life, and beauty, and in this case, the full bloom of friendship between the United States and Japan. But sakura requires the right soil, clean water, and nurturing to see its best blossoms. And our Japan-US relationship is no different, built carefully upon great sacrifice, especially by the Japanese-American community. The story of this town, Winter's Japantown, is relatively unknown, but I'm so proud to be here with you today to help bring it into light. And let this representation of what once was to serve as a reminder of the sacrifices and continued commitment of Japanese Americans on our roadship to friendship for all of us here today and for the generations to follow. Thank you very much.
On a personal note, my interest in Japanese developed over the years because of my friendship and deep respect for the next speaker. Dennis Hiramatsu is not only a doctor of dentistry, but a doctor of medicine. He was the valedictorian of his class. His parents were both valedictorians. He is, I think, someone that I've looked up to for a long time, and he's here to tell us a little bit about Japanese contributions in the military.
Thank you, Woody. First of all, I have to clear up something. Woody's very generous in his accolades. I went to medical school, but I decided it wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, so I stopped. I know Woody very well because we play golf together, and so he's seen all of my faults and my weaknesses, and he's still my friend, so thank you so much, Woody. During World War II, 33,000 Japanese Americans proudly served in the United States military. 20,000 served in the U.S. Army. Most of those served in the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, the Military Intelligence Service, and the 100th Infantry Battalion. In 2011, these three units were collectively awarded the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian award bestowed by the United States Congress. Based on its size and length of service, the 442nd was the most decorated unit in U.S. military history. The Military Intelligence Service was credited with saving countless American lives and shortening the war by collecting valuable intelligence through the interrogation of captured Japanese soldiers and the translation of intercepted war documents. Many of our fathers and uncles served in the 442nd and the Military Intelligence Service, and many of them were decorated for their valor, loyalty, and sacrifice. On their behalf, thank you very much for this memorial.
As Floyd said earlier, there were quite a few people in town that stood up for the right thing. They stood up against racism that once infected this community. And here to tell the story, my name is Vasey. Please welcome to the podium, Vasey Coman.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank the Historical Society of Winters for inviting me. I'll preface what I'm about to read with the remark that this is a speech that I wrote when I was 16 after hearing a story that is often repeated with pride in my family, and rightly so. I received a lot of support from my family and educators in the community, including Mr. Fridae, in preparing it, and I recited it in a number of competitions like academic decathlon. And I'm very grateful for that experience. But 16 years later, I hesitated to share it again because it's very embarrassing to read something you wrote as a teenager in front of people. And the truth is, I better appreciate the history I describe in this speech now, and how the most important people in the story play a pretty marginal role in this retelling. I want to acknowledge that, and I wish I knew more about them. But I also see in the story a demonstration of the importance of doing what is right, of helping our neighbors, and of acting in ways that will make our great-great-grandchildren proud. Our names are the only things that remain constant in life. Height, weight, thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, they all change as we do. But our names and how we are known to the world can be forever. Moses, Sophocles, Galileo, Napoleon, Shakespeare, all great men, and their names, long after they are gone, are still spoken. Our names can outlive us. The name given to us at birth, the names that travel with us throughout life, are the same names that will be written in somebody's Bible, printed in the newspaper, and etched onto the stones that will mark our graves. It is important that our names complement our lives, because other aspects of us eventually change and everyone eventually dies. What's left is the name and the memories left behind. Parents begin thinking of names the minute they realize a child is on the way. Elaborate name books can be purchased at any bookstore. Go online and find site after site listing names and their meanings. It's clear that names matter. Parents select names for many different reasons, but through where they become who we are, our identity, and ourselves. Our names become us, and we become our names. There used to be a small grocery store on Main Street in the town where I grew up. It sold various basic goods like food and hats and soap. It was also a meat market, so there was a nice selection of freshly butchered meats. The small store was called Vasey Brothers. because the two brothers who owned it were Jack and Gregory Vasey. These two men lived and grew up in my small town. They were church-going men, outstanding members of their community. They respected people until given a reason not to. When customers visited the store, it was often just as likely they came to visit with the two brothers as to buy a loaf of bread. Jack and Gregory Vasey were well-liked and well-respected in their small town. But in 1945, in the tense times right after World War II, respect could be tested. The world had been transformed. Americans had just fought a bitter war in Europe, Africa, and the Pacific. And in the small town where the Vasey brothers lived, Japanese Americans were coming home from the camps where they had been incarcerated for years. The first family to arrive back in my small town stayed away from the rest of the community. They were afraid for their reception, and they didn't want to provoke any anger or violence. However, everyone needs food and soap and meat, and on one chilly day, the Japanese woman and young daughter came into town, and their fears were realized. The town taunted the family with racial slurs, insults, and mockery, and the woman and her child were soon the center of attention of a large, angry mob. They ran, and they were chased. Jack Vasey was standing in the alley out back of the Vasey brothers' store that day. He heard the uproar and went to investigate. Suddenly, he came face to face with the Japanese family. They had turned into the alley hoping to escape. And Jack understood what was happening without having to see the mob. In 1975, 30 years after the incident, a newspaper account was published recalling the rest of what happened that day. It reads, Jack Vasey motioned the fleeing family into the store and locked the back door and went through the store, locking the front and side doors to keep the howling mob out. The mob grew larger and more threatening, calling on Jack Vasey to turn the Japanese woman and her child over to them. Local law enforcement couldn't be reached, so Jack called Yolo County Sheriff Forrest Monroe. Sheriff Monroe drove out to the store, went in, got the woman and her child, loaded them in his car, told the mob to act like American citizens, and took the pair back to the ranch where they had been living. Jack Vasey was later named Citizen of the Year. When he died in 1976, the weekly editorial in the town's newspaper was dedicated to him. He was a hero. He was a great man. He was my great-grandfather. My name is Vasey. Thank you.
Well, you should be proud, Vasey. Something you wrote half a lifetime ago still carries a punch. Now, Howard Kato would like to say a few words of gratitude. Howard?
Longtime residents of Winters and farmers would know me as a member of the Kato family. So I'm Howard Kato or Howard Kato. Okay. With the signing of Executive Order 9066 by President Franklin D. Roosevelt on February 19, 1942, all people of Japanese ancestry living on the west coast of California were sent to internment camps. When the Japanese immigrants and their American-born children, known as the Issei and Nisei generations, were sent to internment camps, they could only take what they could carry, as you heard in Sumi's essay. And many Japanese left behind household items, vehicles, pets, and unharvested crops, which they worked hard to grow. Those living in winters were sent to concentration camps in Amache, Colorado, and Gila River, Arizona, and were incarcerated for more than 3.5 years. The monument site that you will be viewing is dedicated to all the Issei and Nisei who once lived in the Winters community. Secondly, the monument is an educational tool that teaches a part of U.S. history that most Americans do not know about. The monument is even educational for my generation, the Sansei, because our parents hardly or never talked about what happened when they were sent to camp or the difficulties and challenges that they faced upon their release. Additional information on the experience of the Japanese families in Winters before and after the war can be found at the exhibit at the Winters Museum on 13 Russell Street. The museum will be open until 6 p.m. today. I want to thank the Historic Society of Winters, the Winters City Council, the Rotary Club, the City Public Works Department, the UCCE Master Gardeners of Yolo County, and the Rucala Monument Company, all who made the development and placement of the monument possible. Thank you very much.
This has truly been a community project. As such, there are many people that we wish to thank. Howard thanked a few, and Gloria warned me that if I start thanking individuals, I'm going to leave somebody out. But I would like to also thank the City of Winters. They have been very supportive and cooperative with this. Jesse Lorne especially was supportive in helping write the new resolution that rescinded the resolution in 1942. Lori Lindsay, Ruthie Shimomura, Susan and Rich Von Gildern, Gloria Lopez, Melanie Bajakian, along with the horticulture class from the Winters High School, created all those decorations at the table, and don't they look stunning? Led by Stephanie Myers, the UCCE Master Gardeners enthusiastically pitched in and designed and implemented the landscaping. Along with her crew, Heather Nichols, Gary Douglas, Jean Whitman, Ruthie Shimomura, Al Viacio, Denise Cottrell, Jeff Tempas. They've transformed that part of the park. We appreciate their dedication, expertise. Eric Lucero was incredibly helpful in marshaling all the staff. Terry Vender and Solomon Del Toro did the heavy lifting. We also, as Howard mentioned, the Rucala monuments were great to work with, especially Jennifer, who was always quick to respond whenever we had minor changes over the 13 different iterations of the wording and the design. One of our goals of this monument is to make sure that this story is not forgotten. A big thank you goes to the Winters Unified School District for their cooperation in this effort. Superintendent Roddy Boonchoy has reached out to the Historical Society to collaborate with us. He and his ethics studies team have made this exhibit that you'll see at the museum part of their curriculum. We've already had classes coming into the museum to take advantage of the research Thank you, Roddy, for your leadership. Now, Gloria Lopez has tried to retire from the Historical Society several times, but she keeps coming back in one way or another, and often doing more than us on the Historical Society board. In many ways, it was her interest in research that got us into studying more and learning more about the Japanese community. The result of that first exhibit, it was not static, but it was vibrant and growing. Each week, somebody would come in with a new photo or new artifact, and we would have to rearrange and make room for it. It became a place of reunions of families that hadn't seen each other in many, many years. And pretty soon we realized that we wanted to do something to memorialize the lost Japanese community of Winters. We thank the members of that original committee and the larger monument committee that grew out of it for all their planning. So I just want to mention Gloria Lopez, Floyd Shimomura, Vicki Jacobs, Dennis Hiramatsu, Lori Lindsay, Howard Kato, right? Rob Coman, George Griffin, Susan Von Gildern, Ruthie Shimomura, Joe Bristow, Lorraine Rominger, Charlie Wallace, Tom Crisp, and Bill Young. And I used to be on that committee, except they kicked me out when Rebecca and I decided to go for a 10-week trip to Australia right before this event was to take place. I want to especially thank Rob Coman, who is always at the museum and does all the tech stuff and the stuff in the background that we get to take credit for. He does as much as all of us put together. So I applaud all of you. Please join me in all the applause. And of course, none of this would be possible without the financial support of our donors. We thank all of you who have donated time or money to the Historical Society. And here are our biggest donors: Lorraine Rominger, Nancy Katayama and Beverly Angel, Jack Mariani, Tony and Joan Turkovich, Rob and Liz Young, Dave and Judy Gilchrist, John and Kathy Collado, McMahon Graff Partners, Betty Ann Carrion, Ireland, Robert and Priscilla Schultz, Mary Beth and Martin Ristad, Vicky Sandy Vickery, and Floyd Shimomura. Merv Kato, Jim Cozen, Bill and Nancy Young, Charlie and Sherry Wallace. Let's give them a round of applause. And as Gloria warned me, I'm sure I left some people out, but this all goes to prove that this truly is an effort from the heart and an effort from the community, the entire community. And most of all, we want to thank the Japanese community that have come back for this event, some of whom came from far away and others who still live in Winters. To all of you, we hope you consider this is your home. Could we have all of the descendants, Japanese descendants, stand up? Please now welcome to the podium Reverend Matt Hamasaki from the Sacramento Buddhist Church to offer a benediction.
Thank you. I thought he was going to finish. I was going to be off the hook. Today is May 4th, which many people know is Star Wars Day, May the 4th. Tomorrow is May 5th, which also many people know as Cinco de Mayo. But it's also Children's Day in Japan. And so there's some decorations up. They have the koinobori, the carp, and I think this is a great symbol for the pioneers, Japanese pioneers that came over. The legend of the carp is that because part of their life process is swimming upstream, is that there is a waterfall where if they swim up and are able to make it over to the top, that they turn into a dragon. And so this is a symbol of tenacity, of overcoming adversity, and eventually succeeding. And what, a great representation of the Issei and Nisei generations from Winters, in that not only did they have to leave their home country, start over, work so hard to create something, and then have it all taken away from them, only to come back and do it again. But also, along with Children's Day, the whole purpose of it is to recognize the differences between children, as well as to celebrate their happiness. And I think this is also the motivation for those pioneers, was everything was kodomo no tameni, everything was for the sake of the children. That's what had them work so hard, create everything all over from nothing. And it's why we have to continue to keep their legacy alive and not ever let it go into nothingness. So if you could all please join me in Gasho, put your hands together, or prepare yourself in the way that you're accustomed. We humbly dedicate this monument as a representation of our gratitude for the sacrifices, the effort, and the love of the Issei and Nisei generation of the Winters community. We promise to continue to pass it down and teach others so it is never forgotten. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo. Thank you.
At this time, we would like to welcome the Japanese, the Sacramento Taiko Dan group to come back. And as they're playing, we invite the members of the Japanese community and special guests to go out first to see the monument that will be unveiled. And as they finish the drumming, we'd like everybody else to come out afterwards.
you.